Hello, Kat. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So I actually don't know you, which is very, very interesting. I love interviewing people I don't really know, so I'm excited to get to know you.
Yeah, I'm kind of a new face.
Hey, that's fine. So how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. So how was your day?
Good. I just came from a Halloween party for queer youth, so
that's so much
fun.
Oh my God, what was like the theme? Just like Halloween?
We were watching Hocus Pocus.
Oh,
it was great.
That's
so,
such a good one. So where do you do that with?
I work for Diversity Ed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I love Diversity Ed.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long have you been there?
Just a couple months now. We've been, I wouldn't say necessarily like working together, but they'd helped me a lot in the past. I'm trans, so so that's been, they've been a really great help for me.
That's so nice.
Yeah,
well, and they do great work, like, because I work for Rebound and we have Spectrum, so Diversity Ed and Spectrum always like kind of collab on certain things. And I feel like both places are such great resources for trans youth, for queer youth, gay, it doesn't matter. Like if you fall under the umbrella, like it's such a great space for you.
Yeah, and I run a support group for trans adults.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's been really, really good.
That's
We've been
quite
doing that for
interesting,
a couple months now.
because I feel like a lot of people forget that trans adults exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's such like a heavy focus on trans youth and youth identity and young people when like after 25, there's not a lot of resources and there's not a lot going on for trans adults. So that's phenomenal. So why did you feel like compelled to start that? Because obviously I know you just said you were trans, but it doesn't mean that you have to do it. So.
No, there are a lot of people that don't have the I guess you would say like emotional currency to be able to do some of those things, right? I was approached to go ahead and do that. So that was something that I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. I want to do that because I do a lot of advocacy too, right? I started like 2 years ago public speaking and that kind of thing, right? So I'm able to take the heat a little bit too,
Oh, good. I was
right?
gonna say advocacy can be a very scary space to be in sometimes.
Yeah. So so it was just something that kind of like fell into my lap and I was like, yeah, sure, I'm gonna do it.
It's
why
like
not?
just destiny knocking at your door.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so nice though, and good for you for putting in that work, because a lot of people, especially in the culture we live in right now, are scared to step outside, especially for trans folk. It's just not a safe place for them.
No,
it's just not. It's not, and it sucks. It's not fair at all. But advocacy work is very difficult. So what is like your biggest challenge doing it here in Sarnia?
I would say just like the onslaught of misinformation that comes through.
Oh my God,
right?
Oh lordy lord.
We all see it. We all know it exists.
Yeah, big time.
And just it's challenging to deal with that a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
So
well, because once someone has their mind kind of made up, like you cannot change their mind. You can give them all the facts in the world. If they have it in their head, it's done for. So have you always been an advocate, or is this something you've just recently found a voice in?
Well, I mean, I've done my thing online for like years and years and years, right? And advocating for mental health and that kind of thing, right? I've been hospitalized a few times, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I've actually like started exploring my gender and realizing, hey, this is what's up, that I have not been hospitalized. So we love that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good though. That means that that's amazing.
Yeah. So I've done that, and my son's disabled, so I have to advocate for him in that kind of sense, right?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of just like fallen in my lap, and I love it. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you have been hospitalized. I have lots of friends who experience that. Yeah, it's something that happens in life, and it's a lot more normal than I think people want to give credit to.
Yeah.
Again, I know myself, I've thought about it so many times in my lifetime, and it's good to utilize those resources when you need to. But for you to share that openly right now, thank you for sharing, because a lot of people don't want to talk about it at all. So your online work, as you said, did you grow up in Sarnia doing that, or did you grow up elsewhere?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Sarnia,
nice.
And I realized that there was like a really big need for people to be like, hey, no, that's not okay, or this is okay kind of thing,
absolutely.
right? And like giving people the language to be able to talk about things appropriately has been one of the biggest things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people just don't want to say the wrong thing, so then they also silence themselves. And I'm like, that either pendulum swing is not good. We need to like have a nice little middle ground.
Yeah, and having those conversations where you say the wrong thing, but you're going into that conversation with an open mind and saying, hey, you know, if I'm saying this wrong, please correct me, kind of thing,
exactly.
right? That's one of the biggest things that you can do, right?
Yeah, 100%. So what do you think is Sarnia's biggest challenge right now, from your perspective and the work that you do?
I think, well, the biggest challenge that I've seen is like an uptick in bullying and just like really, really harsh language, harassment, that kind of thing of like queer youth. Like it's really, really bad.
It is really, really bad. And it often leads down a path that I don't think a lot of people see, that is like full of like pain and suffering and sadness, because those poor youth, like they will internalize that, and then suddenly it will become part of their early adulthood and their adulthood. And a lot of people don't take that in because they think they're doing the right thing. And I'm like, well, you can't judge what's right or wrong. Like no one can. The universe has a plan. They designs itself. Like you don't need to involve yourself in it. And so thank you for bringing that up, because I do agree. I've seen it so many times. And it just sucks also when adults do it to youth. I've noticed that trend a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I've had youth come up to me and say, oh, you know, like I've used the wrong bathroom, right? Like their gender assigned at birth, and they've heard, you know, slurs being said. If I ever see in here, I'm gonna beat them and stuff like that, and that's not okay. It's really, really not okay.
There's such like violence,
and that's learned behavior too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like people don't just say it for no reason. There's other things going on in the background. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's quite alarming. But what do you think Sarnia's doing right now that is beneficial?
Oh, well, there's like so many programs like Rebound, like us, where, you know, youth experience these things and they go and they have, you know, they get bullied, they hear harsh language, they don't have a great supportive space at home, right? And then they have, you know, youth groups like Rebound offers, or like we offer, and, you know, they have a space to be themselves and stuff like that,
Which is so important, because I know even for me, like I'm queer, but I didn't really start that journey until like my early 20s. I kind of always knew, but I wasn't entirely sure. But even just finding space in theater for me made the world of a difference. And I came to Rebound, and they just like, you know, held me while I cried and all that kind of fun stuff. And just having that alone, even without the context of being queer, was enough for me to carry on and be okay. So I can only imagine what the impact is for like places like Diversity Ed. So if I was a youth wanting to reach out, how would I reach out to you?
So we're on Instagram, which is how a lot of our youth find us and find programming. We post a programming calendar every month too.
Yeah, I have seen them.
And you don't have to register to come, right? You just come when your age bracket is, you know, having the drop in that day, right? And we do like, we did a coffee social last week. There's Pride, right? You can get yourself associated.
You guys throw a good Pride.
And then there's also the QT Youth Summer Camp too, which is free.
Yeah, I've heard about that. So how did that all start up?
Now, I'm not an expert on this one.
That's okay.
But it was just like a summer camp it was a void that needed to be filled, right?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of camps where you can't be yourself because you're around a lot of other kids that, as we discussed, are not the nicest, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So just creating that space for queer kids so they can be safe, right?
Yeah. So can allies also join that, or is it just a queer space only?
I want to say yes.
But
don't quote me on that.
I won't quote, but that's amazing that you can provide a safer space for that. Because I hate the term safe space, like genuinely, because there's no way on this earth can you provide a safe space
for everybody,
but a safer space.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least there's a barrier that is knocked down within that. And I think that's like so crucial and so important, especially when you're trying to like figure out your own identity, especially sexuality. Like it's just so many layers to who you are as a human and what you put out. So is that your favorite part of Diversity Ed, or?
Yeah, so, and I love doing the like education piece too, right? Sitting down and having those hard to have conversations. Like we've organized a couple protests in the last month or so. And I mean, there's some people, it's like talking to a brick wall, but then there's other people that you talk to and you're like, oh, well, I agree with that. And it's like, yeah, of course you agree with that because you seem like a decent human being, right?
Exactly. But that kind of work also takes a lot of you and putting yourself out there and being on the front line is very difficult. So how do you self-care to kind of balance that out?
I do a lot of reading.
Oh, that's top tier. That's good stuff.
So I've been, I was avoidant of paper books for a long time because I'm also neurodivergent. So words on paper, I was
words
like,
on paper's
no,
hard.
thank you.
I'm dyslexic, so I get it. Yeah.
Audiobooks, hello.
I listen to audiobooks every single day I go to work. I like turn it on. I'm like, this is like better than a podcast sometimes, but definitely listen to our podcast. Because I'm just like, oh yeah, I get to learn something new and like I get to like continuously know what to go to when I open my phone up.
Yeah.
The like choosing part really bothers me, so it's just nice. Do you have any audiobooks on the go right now?
I am listening to, actually I'm reading on paper because it was like a gateway to reading on paper. Because one of these
drug.
So one of these books that I wanted to read was not available as an audiobook. So I've got 2 on the go right now. I'm reading Breaking Open the Head. It's about psychedelics and their relationship between like alcohol use and drug use. That's also something that I'm passionate about because I'm about 150 days sober. So
congratulations! That's incredible. Thanks. Good little clap. Good little clap. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was a long time coming for me, right? And I'm also reading Misbelief, and it's about why rational people believe irrational things.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's like conspiracy theories, the wormholes you can get into. I might have to grab that after because I would love to listen to that as well. That's the audiobook?
That one is an audiobook as well, but I'm reading it on paper.
You're reading it? Oh, nice, nice. So about being sober, what brought you to that decision?
I'd been smoking weed chronically for like 12 years or something like that. I was like, it's just time, right? I started microdosing mushrooms, woke up one day and I was like, I am not reading, like I'm not smoking anymore. So not doing that anymore.
Microdosing mushrooms can be very eye-opening.
It's very beneficial.
I haven't done it yet. I really, really want to, because I have PTSD. So like I had to be very careful with like what I do with like any psychedelics. Now I'm at a place in my healing journey that I think it's like okay for me to do. But I also love that you mentioned smoking weed, because a lot of people when they say sober, they immediately go to alcohol, like hard drugs, pills, which like if that's part of your journey, like addiction's a serious thing. Like that's more than okay.
Absolutely.
But smoking weed also is very much in that. Like I'm a cannabis user, love the stuff, but there's like hard boundaries I have with it. Whereas some people will smoke like as soon as they get up all the way to the end of the day.
I couldn't have those hard boundaries with myself, right? So, and I tried to be like one of those people who's like, okay, you only smoke at bedtime. Kind of thing. And that wasn't working for me, right?
Yeah, because the smoking like itself, the action is addictive. The way that it kind of releases like the stress from your body is addictive. The drug itself may not be addictive, but everything around it is, like especially the smoking factor. That's what people get with like just smoking cigarettes too. Well, good for you for recognizing it.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a hard one. It's really, really difficult.
Well, and it's so normalized too, right? And that's one thing. I'm also in school right now. So I know I just plate is full.
Hey, that's good though. Look at you living your best life.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it's we were talking about how we don't necessarily have a culture where like smoking weed is looked like frowned upon, right? You know, the terms around somebody who's like a pothead, it's not a negative, it's almost an endearing term,
it's
right?
like, oh, look at him go, pothead energy, like 100%.
Yeah, so it definitely like normalizes heavy usage way more than it should, and it can be damaging for some people,
It
right?
can be, especially if you're younger getting into it, because it can have an effect on your development, which I always, like I didn't start until it was legal, so like that's where my journey started. I think I was like 21, 22 at that time, so I felt like I had a better grip on who I was as a person. But a lot of people that started in high school, I feel like they definitely quit around like 20, like 21 as well, because it does get into your life and it kind of takes over a little bit if you're not fully like there in your mental space to be able to take on a drug.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
taking
yeah.
on a drug takes up a lot.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's so exciting though.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're in school.
Yep.
What are you taking?
I'm doing community service worker,
Oh,
which
nice.
is basically social work, just a
Yeah.
little bit more in depth. Yeah.
So community service is in like when you get like arrested and you have to do community service, or is it more of like
no community service as in like connecting people with services in the community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
want to have like one of those like orange vests, like handing them out trash picks.
No,
I
no,
think that
yeah.
that job that job would be rewarding though. I think as soon as you said it, I was like, I would like to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but to pay $10,000 for it?
Yeah, that's super
Yeah,
fair.
yeah.
That's super fair. No. So what in that is like kind of reminiscent of your life now? Like, are you already building? Because you work with diversity ed, so you're kind of already doing that.
Yeah. Basically, we live in a society where we have to have that piece of paper,
Yeah.
and I have to have that piece of paper to, come off as serious to some people,
It's the most
right?
expensive piece of paper you'll ever buy in your
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah. So,
100%.
doing that journey, which I've always had a complicated relationship with school, but I'm excelling, so
that's
it's really awesome. Yeah, it's
Did
very
you have
rewarding.
difficulties with it because of your neurodivergence?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's super fair. I feel like, I don't know how old you are. You don't have to say your age if you don't want to, but you're more than welcome to. But I feel like I don't know, up until like 2017, things were not talked about, especially when it comes to like invisible disabilities. And I feel like life would have been so much different if back then, because I was in school from 2010 to 2014, so really on the cusp of like things getting better, but not really quite yet. And there's so many people I can think about now that I'm like, man, if we had what we had now, I think those people would have done a lot better with like their mental health and their health space, because like it's nuts thinking back what we had to go through in the education system.
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
There was like absolutely no accommodations, nothing,
No.
and nothing to like keep it up, like make things easier for people, right?
No, and you were labeled as a bad kid too.
Yes.
Or like lazy, or
Yes.
like a dope, like not smart, not
Yeah.
intelligent.
Yeah.
Like like my oldest sister has ADHD and I'm getting tested. I'm in the process of getting tested for ADHD right now. And like even when her and I talk about it, like in her school journey, like I know it wasn't easy for her, and it was easier for me just because I had a lot of memorization skills. So I'm on the spectrum of photographic memory as well. So I was able to use that as I was studying. But if you don't have that, like you really get lost in the sea of everybody else.
No, and I feel like a lot of people, once they, go to post-secondary, then they start specializing, and now we get into the special interests,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that's where people start excelling, because you're not
Thrive.
doing ABC 1, 2, 3 kind of stuff,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. I was shocked because in high school, like I was like kind of an A student, but I did get a few like B's and C's along the way. But then as soon as I went to university and I was doing like only theater, it was like A plus, A plus, A plus, because I'm like, this is actually something I'm interested in and I can actually do. Like, from your perspective on your journey, looking back now, is there anything to kind of offset that? Like to make sure that the students are getting what they need?
I feel like our school system is doing better than it was, right? Even just like with my young guy going to school and stuff like that, there's a lot more that they had to offer then than they did then, right? Realistically, I think we're on a good path moving forward, right?
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. I think there's a good paved way. I just know like a lot of people always have like lots of hot take. So, but so you're in school, but then you're also a parent. How do you balance that? Because my mom did it when I was a kid, and watching her do it was nuts to me.
It is nuts sometimes.
Absolutely.
So I used to be in night school. And so I would work all day, and I would go pick up my son at, 4, and then I would spend 2 hours with him, cook him dinner, and then I would be back, I would be in school from 6 until 10 o'clock at night. And I said, I can't do this.
Yeah, that's like a lot.
So I ended up moving to during the day and, working out and saying, hey, boss, is it okay if I, come in a little bit later instead? And that was no problem because
that's so nice.
they know what I'm trying to do, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, no, so it's been really good that way. And some days I get out of class early and I, pack up the car, go to work. But
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's hard to have, because you're not only balancing school and work, you're also balancing personal life, and then also being a parent on top of that. So is there any advice, because you're not the only one I've heard that's in this boat, and I feel like right now because of post-COVID with like how like the recession's come in, like how do you make sure that you're pulling up the best you can be?
I mean, we have this conversation all the time in class too. It's like, as long as you have to take care of yourself first, right? Or you can't show up as a parent.
No.
Like, that's not something that you can do, right?
No.
You can't be right on the edge and expect yourself to be as a good parent as
Absolutely.
well, right? First off, take care of yourself. That's like number one. You have to have good self-care practices, good boundaries too.
Yeah.
Like you guys were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Like, don't bring your work home with you.
Don't bring it home. No, and I feel like self-care hardly ever talks actually about boundaries. It's always about like face mask and bubble baths and go on a trip to Cuba. It's like, with what money do I have to do any of those three?
Yeah.
And with what time do I have to do those things? But creating boundaries in your life, it actually like relieves so much more stress than people even realize.
Yeah, and being mindful of your time too, right? Even if you just take like 5 minutes, not even 2 minutes for yourself, do a little guided meditation, something to recenter yourself and ground yourself can be so great too, right?
Oh yeah, and it just like kind of resets your body completely. So meditation, that's interesting. Are you spiritual?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah?
yeah. Like I don't knock it. I don't yuck anybody's yum.
Yeah. Hey, I like that.
Yeah.
Nobody's yum.
Yeah. No, I can relate with everybody on that kind of spectrum, right?
Yeah.
But do I like go to church every Sunday or do I do this and that? No. I'm just like empathetic with people who do that kind of thing.
I'm just a good
right?
person.
Yeah.
No, I love that though. See, I'm very, very spiritual, so I love
Yeah.
to meditate. I love to like do all like the manifestation work and all that kind of fun stuff. But I am also someone that's like, I don't yuck nobody's yum.
Yeah.
I'm taking that one. I'm like,
Yeah.
little nugget there. But I see a lot of spirituality being like kind of convoluted sometimes to people's like wants and desires and what their own like agenda is. And so I was just curious to see like if you've had that experience in your line of work.
Well, I first got started by talking to people in churches.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I went and spoke to congregations and said, like, hey, if you have questions, like, come to me and I'm more than happy to answer you on like a no judgment basis. Like, you don't have to watch your language, like, because again, like we talked about, it's sometimes people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to say the wrong thing, right? And it's okay to say the wrong thing
More than
as
okay.
long as you're in the mindset of learning,
Absolutely.
right? I don't think that we should paint everybody with the same brush. I think that Christians in general are falling under a lot of heat right now, especially with the whole like gender inequality thing right now. So yeah, it's just being empathetic to each other, right? And I had somebody once come up to me and say, I've always pictured myself a blonde, and if I couldn't dye my hair blonde, then I don't know what I would do. I'm like, okay, but you're getting on the path of empathy and starting to understand how somebody feels.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's a little step, but we're getting there,
It's
right?
a little baby step. It might be a little bigger of a concept.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's such a great point though to bring up about like Christian churches, just because like my family, like I grew up Catholic, and my experience in Catholicism is so different than everybody else's, because I was raised by a single mother. My grandma helped raise me, so I only had women around me. And so my experience in church was that you love everybody, like gay people were at my church, like black people were at my church, and like a lot of diversity was going on. And so for me, it was like, I grew up thinking that like everyone's like that, everyone's so open, everyone's so accepting, and then to hear that it's not like that. And then when I went to the protests that you folks organized, and then seeing it, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like this is just another rude awakening. But again, I agree, you should not paint everyone with the same brush. Just because someone says they're Catholic or Christian does not mean that they align with those views or values. And even non-Christian people align with those values. So I just find it very difficult sometimes, I don't know if you do, to go into certain types of conversations, making sure that I don't have an unconscious bias. How do you combat unconscious bias?
I try to have a grain of salt with every conversation that I'm having, right?
That's super fair.
Most people just aren't educated, right? And they're coming from a place of ignorance. And if you say like, hey, this is not how this actually goes, this is how it goes, right? And here's some evidence to back it up, right?
Yeah.
Is probably going to get you a lot farther than the latter, right? And sometimes there are conversations that I have where, again, I'm talking to a brick wall and I say, that's fine, that you can have your opinions. I really don't care.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm gonna live my life. I'm gonna be thriving.
Yeah,
like, you're
exactly.
fine, yeah.
And you can have the conversations that you want to have around your kitchen table. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
But when you start and try to infringe on anybody's rights, that's when I have a problem.
That's when I'm gonna
right?
step up. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. All right, so last question for you. For anyone listening at home, what is a piece of advice you would like to leave with everyone?
For everybody listening at home, I guess, just be a nice person.
Just be a good person, okay?
Just be nice. Make space for yourself and be gentle with yourself too, right? I think that's a lot of things that people don't do for themselves is they're really hypercritical of themselves.
Absolutely.
Let yourself make mistakes, learn along the way.
Yeah, you just gotta like keep growing. That's all you gotta focus on. Growth mindset.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
today.
you.
Oh my gosh, so good. All right, see y'all.
Bye.